Before we dive in, let's take a trip back in time. The 1970s marked the golden age of arcade gaming. Arcades were packed with people lining up to play the latest hits like Pac-Man, Defender, and Galaga. Back then, arcades were the go-to place for people to get their gaming fix. But by the late 80s, things started to shift. Home consoles were on the rise, bringing the arcade experience into people's living rooms. Then, on December 3rd, 1994, everything changed with the release of the Sony PlayStation. Looking at Bloomberg's gaming revenue chart, it's clear that after 1994, arcade gaming saw a steady decline. Now, this shift hit certain franchises hard, especially those that built their legacy in the arcades. Take Tekken, for example, or Street Fighter, especially after Street Fighter 2, and most importantly, Mortal Kombat, which really thrived in this scene. At one point in time, Mortal Kombat was the undisputed bad boy of arcade gaming, turning heads with its brutal gameplay and controversy. The first 3 entries dominated arcades, achieving both critical and commercial success. But as the late 90s rolled around and home consoles took over, Midway made a decision. It was time for Mortal Kombat's last stand in the arcades. With this Mortal Kombat entry, it marked the end of an era. Welcome to episode 5 of the Mortal Kombat Takeover. Today we're going gold with Mortal Kombat 4.
Finish her! Finish him! Fatality!
If you're new to the channel and enjoy Mortal Kombat as much as I do, be sure to check out my Mortal Kombat retrospective playlist, where I've already covered the series up to Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero. Also, if you're a fan of Rockstar games, you won't want to miss out on my Rockstar Takeover, where I'm diving into classics like Grand Theft Auto, Midnight Club, and Max Payne. If that sounds up your alley, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with the latest uploads. And don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps push the algorithm out to more people. With that being said, let's dive into this. If you haven't seen my other Mortal Kombat retrospectives, here's a quick recap. In the early 90s, following the massive success of Street Fighter II, Bally Midway, part of Williams Entertainment, wanted to create their own fighting game. Enter John Tobias, a young designer with a passion for gaming. He and a small team pitched their idea to the higher-ups, but Midway initially declined, as they were more interested in working with Jean-Claude Van Damme after his role in Bloodsport. Midway approached Van Damme, but due to scheduling conflicts with Universal Soldier, he turned it down. That's when everything changed. Impressed by Tobias's pitch, Midway gave him and Ed Boon the green light to create their passion project, originally titled Kumite. The game was later renamed to Mortal Kombat, and in 1992, it took the world by storm. The game's violence made it an instant controversy, forcing Congress to take action, which led to the creation of the ESRB. Ironically, all the negative publicity only fueled Mortal Kombat's popularity. The series reached new heights with Mortal Kombat 2, which became the highest grossing arcade game of 1994. From there, the franchise exploded, expanding into movies, live shows, and merchandise, leading to the release of Mortal Kombat 3. Now, while Mortal Kombat 3 was successful, it also marked a turning point for the series. Key characters were cut, lawsuits followed, and the game ended up being re-released twice, resulting in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 and Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Despite the behind-the-scenes chaos, the franchise remained commercially strong. Then came Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero, a game that many consider the series' lowest point critically. But surprisingly, it was a commercial success. During this time, Ed Boon and John Tobias split their focus. Boon worked on Mortal Kombat 4 while Tobias handled Mortal Kombat Mythologies. And with that, We are now caught up to date.
Mortal Kombat has become an industry upon itself. Every version of Mortal Kombat that has been introduced into the marketplace has become a blockbuster.
The thing that really astounds us is that this one arcade game that we made in 1992 has managed to spawn off all these different forms of media.
The development of Mortal Kombat 4 was happening simultaneously with Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, but it's important to note that this was a packed season of releases. Mythologies, Mortal Kombat 4, and eventually Mortal Kombat Annihilation will all drop within the same period. At this point, Mortal Kombat's popularity was at an all-time high. During development, the team at Midway started to feel that the 2D sprites used in previous entries were becoming outdated. It was time to take a leap into 3D. However, many of the original Mortal Kombat developers had little experience working in 3D. Fortunately, in 1996, Midway had already dropped their first 3D fighting game called War Gods. This led to new members being added to the Mortal Kombat 4 team, giving Ed Boon more responsibility as the franchise moved into uncharted territory. According to Boon, he stated, "I was still the only programmer for Mortal Kombat 2 and 3, but by Mortal Kombat 4, the team was too big for me to lead and also be the only programmer. Todd Allen and Mike Boone joined us as programmers for Mortal Kombat 4, and by then our team was more than just twice its original size." Ed Boon was joined by his brother Mike Boone as they began programming Mortal Kombat 4. After the release of Mortal Kombat Trilogy, the team at Midway recognized the potential of modern hardware at the time. They saw how newer technology, especially on platformers like the PlayStation, could take the series to new heights. When asked why they were making the move to 3D, Boone explained, "When we saw the kind of power that our new hardware had, it just opened the doors for things that we couldn't even attempt to do with our 2D games. 2D games require memory for each frame of animation, so when you want to have 100 frames of animation for something, you just eat up all your memory. When you see the game, the look will also make it very clear why we chose that direction." With the shift to 3D, Ed Boon also wanted to take the series in a darker direction, moving away from the more comical elements of previous games. While Mortal Kombat 4 would still feature fatalities, it would remove babalities, animalities, and brutalities entirely. Since the team was working with 3D polygon graphics for the first time, they wanted to showcase just how much the franchise had evolved. Unlike past entries which relied on live actors for character movements, MK4 used full computer animation with only some motion capture elements added in. This made fatalities easier to create, allowing the team to experiment more freely. Both the character designs and fatalities saw a drastic overhaul. When asked about this shift, Boone explained, "We actually don't have to do that digital skin stuff. Our characters are composed of over 3,000 polygons each, so you don't even see any individual polys. Mortal Kombat 4 looks more organic than polygonal, and the fighters look just like real-life people from any angle. Imagine a digitalized look, but in 3D, if that's any way to describe it. Then you'll get an idea of what Mortal Kombat 4 looks like."
4 is the first 3D Mortal Kombat.
I don't think we would have even done a Mortal Kombat 4 had we not known that we could do the kind of advancements that we did.
Up till now, no other technology was capable of truly presenting the fast-paced action necessary in a Mortal Kombat game.
And the difference with Mortal Kombat 4 is it utilizes a 3D graphics engine, so the game is entirely done with 3D computer graphics.
We have developed an extremely sophisticated graphics chip, which we call the Zeus chip. It's capable of generating in excess of 1,200,000 four-sided polygons per second. To put that into perspective, I understand that's approximately 10 times more powerful than the Nintendo 64 system.
And we're pushing around so many polygons, and the detail is so incredible, and the realism is so incredible, but that still wasn't enough. We still had to take the game a bit further.
So we decided to change everything. We decided to change the presentation of the graphics, the gameplay, add completely new elements to it all.
What we did was we introduced weapons, and weapons are in other 3D fighting games, but not in the way that weapons are in Mortal Kombat 4. The speed of Mortal Kombat 4 and the way that you can drop a weapon, your opponent can pick up your weapon and use it against you is so incredible and adds so much to the fighting.
When we designed the Zeus chip, we designed it for extraordinary performance, but at a very low cost relative to any other 3D product on the marketplace.
To kick off the launch of Mortal Kombat 4, Midway went all out, organizing a 35-stop road tour across the United States. 3 massive trucks fully decked out with Mortal Kombat 4 decals hit the road to cover the Midwest, East Coast, and West Coast. At each stop, crowds lined up to get their hands on the game, playing on 2 arcade machines. After finishing their 2 matches, players were given a temporary tattoo and a ballot for a chance to win a free Mortal Kombat 4 shirt. The version showcased on the tour was an early build of the game, featuring only 9 playable characters. Even though it was far from the final product, the Road Tour successfully drummed up excitement, leaving fans eager for more.
Kombat 4 Road Tour is something that's never been done before in the video game world. We're taking Mortal Kombat 4 on the road to select cities around the country, and we're providing players a sneak preview, an exclusive sneak preview of the game a full month before anyone else in the world will see it.
This is a product that will cause the kids to be standing 5 deep, waiting to play, because it is so much more exciting than anything that's in the market right now or anything that's been introduced in the market over the past few years.
I'm here to play Mortal Kombat 4.
It's just because it's Mortal Kombat, everybody's going to play it.
I wanted to be the first to play it.
They're all excited. They've been obviously waiting for MK4 for a long time, and now they're close to getting it. And as we can see, the turnout is just fantastic.
We've been really surprised by the amount of media coverage we've received on this tour.
The guys from Midway Games brought over Mortal Kombat 4. This thing isn't even in arcades yet, and the kids love this game so much that they follow the trucks around the country when they give demonstrations. It's like the Grateful Dead tour of video games.
I've been to every single one of the stops so far.
People are already asking when we're going to have it. You know, they want to know the day and the time so they can come and play.
It's been incredible. Our website, mk4.com, has gotten millions of hits since we first put it up on July 10th. To give you an idea of how much activity it's gotten, in one day alone, we've gotten 500,000 hits on the webpage.
Finally, on September 11th, 1997, Mortal Kombat 4 officially hit arcades. Reactions were mixed. Some saw it as a solid entry, while others felt it missed the mark. Now, while I like to save the reception for later in the video, it's worth mentioning what Next Generation had to say about the arcade release. Williams has finally brought one of the most popular fighting games in video game history into the world of 3D. The series has been going downhill. Neither MK3 nor MK Trilogy came near the intensity, power, and production design of Mortal Kombat 2. Sadly, neither does Mortal Kombat 4, but it's a step towards getting the series back on track. Running on the specialized polygon crunching Zeus chip, it's a fast-moving, dark and disturbing fighter that retains many of the series' best qualities. Besides being in 3D, Mortal Kombat 4 adds some other new wrinkles. Characters are all equipped with weapons, which is different for the series. The weapons, battle axes, laser guns, etc., can be knocked out of an opponent's hand and picked up. 12 characters are joined by 3 secret characters, and each older returning fighter has retained old moves while gaining new ones. A few new characters, Quan Chi and Chi-Na, are solid additions. The arcade release of Mortal Kombat 4 received a lukewarm reception, with Next Generation giving it 3 out of 5 stars, essentially labeling it as just an average installment. According to some fans, the arcade version suffered from severe slowdowns, especially when the camera positioned itself behind one of the arena walls. On top of that, the game only featured 2 fatalities per a single stage fatality, which left many players disappointed. But perhaps the biggest letdown was the lack of proper endings. Players were simply met with a black screen displaying the words, "Good job." This was a major disappointment for two key reasons. First, Mortal Kombat was once the undisputed king of the arcades, and second, the arcade release was typically the franchise's main way of building hype for the home console versions. However, this setback wasn't entirely devastating because in the fall of '97, Mortal Kombat was everywhere. On October 1st, 1997, Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero was released, but both critics and fans saw it as a massive disappointment. If you're unfamiliar with how that game was received, be sure to check out my retrospective on Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, where I broke down what exactly went wrong. At this point, Mortal Kombat was 0 for 2 that fall, leaving only one last hope: Mortal Kombat Annihilation. If you want a deep dive into what went wrong with that movie, I highly recommend checking out Matt McMuscle's Mortal Kombat Annihilation: What Happened. But here's the short version. Most of the original cast didn't return, and Paul W.S. Anderson, the director of the first film, had moved on to direct Event Horizon in 1997. As a result, cinematographer John R. Leonetti was promoted to director. Despite it being his first time in the role, the film was ultimately released on November 21st, 1997. Now, if you're curious to see how that film was received, if you've never seen it before, never heard about it, this excerpt from R.L. Schaefer really shows how this movie was received. He stated, "Worse, hilariously awful mate shots, cheap costumes, obvious sets, and some of the worst CG ever put in a mainstream release fill nearly every scene of this movie. Dialogue is bad, the story makes no sense, and there's almost no momentum whatsoever. The fighting is fairly stale, but a few set pieces do work, at least." And I'll give the filmmakers credit for trying to craft a story that doesn't borrow from another movie. Alas, this is one of those kitchen sink films where nearly every idea that has ever encompassed Mortal Kombat is tossed into this movie with virtually no thought or skill at all. With the fall of '97 officially being 0 for 3, things were looking a bit rough for Mortal Kombat. But all hope wasn't lost. Mortal Kombat 4 still had a shot of redemption when it hit home consoles. Like I mentioned earlier, arcade games were fading as more players were getting arcade quality experiences right in their living rooms. Midway knew they had to fix the arcade version shortcomings, so they brought in Eurocom to handle the home console ports. This was an obvious choice. Eurocom had previously ported War Gods, as I stated from earlier, to the Nintendo 64, and that version outperformed the arcade release. With a solid track record, expectations were high. Development moved fast, wrapping up in just 8 months, and on June 23rd, 1998, Mortal Kombat 4 officially launched on home consoles.
I'm here at Midway in front of the big gong, and we're talking about Mortal Kombat, the whole kind of series. I got some good friends of mine here. This is Ed Boon, programmer. Hello. We got John Tobias, and this new guy, Dave.
Dave Mikicic.
How's it going? Now, what I want to talk about first is, let's talk about MK4.
Yeah, this is basically the biggest jump in since Mortal Kombat 1 that we've made in terms of gameplay and presentation. You know, everything is in 3D now, movement can be in 3D. We added weapons, interchangeable weapons, which no other game has had. We're very excited, we have a very positive response over the game too.
Mortal Kombat, each game has always centered around the villains of the game, and all the other characters were just sort of built around them. In this game in particular, the new villain is Shinnok, and his henchman is Quan Chi, kind of like in the other Mortal Kombats, it was Shao Kahn and Shang Tsung.
Right,
so we got a new set of villains, and the heroes that are sort of presented here are sort of in reaction to the new set of villains. So.
We had a lot of the people that are actually on the team, and we brought in some other talent, and they went into the motion capture facility, did all the motion. Ed picked a lot of the moves he wanted and directed him, kind of like we did in the past, but this time it's all in the computer.
Was there ever any Mortal Kombat underwear?
You know, I don't think there was. There might have been Mortal Kombat Halloween costumes and whatever.
Halloween costumes, but no underwear. I want to I want to get me some,
Socks. There have been socks.
Socks.
Yeah.
Socks.
Yeah.
Very cool. What does the future hold now for Mortal Kombat? What are you guys working on next? Is there an MK5, Dave?
Definitely. MK5.
Yeah. How about yourself, John?
Then we're also working on a game called Mortal Kombat Special Forces, which stars Sonya.
Hi.
Hi.
So real quick, who's your favorite character out of all the Mortal Kombats?
Scorpion, absolutely.
Scorpion?
Visually, I'd say Goro.
Goro?
Reptile.
Well, I gotta tell you guys, this is my favorite right here.
Yeah, that's nice. Get the microphone out of my face.
Sorry.
Now, this wasn't the final version of Mortal Kombat 4. Much like Mortal Kombat 3, the game would receive an exclusive update the following year. In 1999, Midway announced Mortal Kombat Gold, an enhanced version of Mortal Kombat 4 designed specifically for the Sega Dreamcast. The game was officially revealed at E3 1999, and here's how the announcement described it. A true arcade port, Mortal Kombat 4 Gold provides gamers with an action-packed fighting game with superior 3D graphics. Each character will feature 3,000 polygons, while the game preserves the coin-op version's scorching speed of 60 frames per second. All these factors combine to give players an extremely detailed and realistic translation from the arcade to the Dreamcast system. Mortal Kombat Gold was designed exclusively for the Sega Dreamcast and is expected to be available at launch of the system this fall. Fans will finally get their hands on Mortal Kombat Gold when it launched on September 9th, 1999.
The most successful fighting game franchise in history just got better. Mortal Kombat Gold is more perfect than any arcade game, with unreal graphics, a blazing frame rate, and more fighters than ever, 20 in all, including many classic characters that fans have been clamoring for, like Baraka, Cyrax, Kitana, and Kung Lao. Mortal Kombat Gold, setting a new gold standard in fighting game excellence.
I think Mortal Kombat Gold will pretty much be the definitive Mortal Kombat experience for console gamers, and it's going to be arcade perfect.
If you're a true MK fan, you will love this game. It is a wonderful game.
Here is a quick spoiler alert as I'm about to tell the story behind Mortal Kombat 4. There will also be light spoilers for Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, along with light spoilers from Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3. Now, if you're not a fan of spoilers, please advance this video to the gameplay overview section as seen on the timeline below. Let's dive into this. If you haven't seen my Mortal Kombat Mythologies retrospective, understand that it serves as the prequel to Mortal Kombat 4. So here's a quick recap focusing only on the events that connected directly to Mortal Kombat 4. 2 years before the first Mortal Kombat tournament, a sorcerer named Quan Chi hired 2 ninjas from rival clans to steal a sacred map of elements, those ninjas being Sub-Zero and Scorpion. Sub-Zero successfully stole the map and eliminated Scorpion at the Shaolin Temple. From there, Sub-Zero embarked on a journey defeating elemental gods and ultimately retrieving an amulet. However, this amulet held some interesting power. It was the key to restoring the fallen elder god Shinnok to his full power. Realizing the danger, Raiden orders Sub-Zero to venture into the Netherrealm, defeat Quan Chi, Shinnok, and retrieve the amulet before it could be used and destroy Earthrealm. Sub-Zero is successful in these acts and goes on to enter the first Mortal Kombat tournament. Now that we're all caught up on how we got here, let's move forward. Like Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, Mortal Kombat 4 also had a comic book adaptation, so I'll be pulling info from both the comic and the game to put the story together. The events of Mortal Kombat 4 open in Edenia, the home of Kitana, Sindel, and the Shokan race. Following the events of Mortal Kombat 3, Queen Sindel regained her memories, turned against Shao Kahn, and helped bring about his defeat. With Shao Kahn gone, she reclaimed her throne and authority over Edenia. In her throne room, Sindel is passing judgment on Reptile for allying himself with Shao Kahn. Showing no fear or remorse, Reptile refuses to beg for mercy. In response, Sindel sentences him to a life of hard labor. As he is escorted away, the ambassador of New Realms enters the room. Accompanying him are his daughter, Tanya, and a mysterious man from another realm. The ambassador claims that a realm called Traich, a powerful artistic society, has been enslaved by a ruthless sorcerer named Shil Kad, and they have come seeking Sindel's aid. Sindel, however, has never heard of this realm before. As a gesture of goodwill, the mysterious man steps forward and presents a gift, a mystical object that he claims will allow Sindel to see her heart's true desire. Intrigued, Sindel gazes into it, completely unaware of the sinister intent behind this act. Stepping away from the throne room, we enter another part of Edenia, where Katana is deeply involved in Edenian politics. She is in the midst of a tense negotiation attempting to bring peace between the Shogun and the Centaurs. With Shao Kahn defeated, many of his outworld policies no longer hold weight. Among them is a promise he once made, granting the land to the Centaurs, which the Shogun now claim as their own. As tensions flare, negotiations threaten to break down completely. Just as a Centaur prepares to strike Katana, a figure hidden in the shadows finally reveals himself. To everyone's shock, it's Goro, the Shogun prince missing since the first Mortal Kombat tournament, has returned. He steps forward and declares that he has spent years in hiding, ashamed of his loss to Liu Kang. Now, with his return, he intends to put an end to the war that began because of his supposed death. Standing tall, Goro issues a challenge to anyone who dares oppose him. The Centaurs, realizing the weight of his presence, ultimately concede and give up the land that Shao Kahn once promised them. At last, peace between the Shogun and the Centaurs is achieved. Katana barely has a moment to breathe in his victory before a massive explosion erupts in the distance. To her shock, it's in Queen Sindel's throne room. Making our way back to the throne room, the orb that was given to Sindel by the mysterious man suddenly bursts open, revealing a portal. From within steps the fallen elder god, Shinnok. At his side are Rico, a member of the Brotherhood of the Shadow, and Scorpion. Sindel and her royal guard stand their ground, but they are quickly overpowered by the forces of the Netherrealm. As Shinnok and Quan Chi advance, the fate of Edenia and possibly the realms themselves hangs in the balance. A few days later, in Earthrealm, we meet Sub-Zero's younger brother, who recalls a conversation with his late sibling about the elemental gods. His brother once spoke about the amulet, an artifact protected by the 4 elemental gods. An amulet, as long as it remained on Earth, would prevent Shinnok from escaping the Netherrealm. Wanting to atone for his brother's past actions, the younger Sub-Zero steps into the Temple of the Elements, seeking to make peace with the elemental gods. But when he arrives, he's met with the unsettling sight. The temple is completely unguarded. Meanwhile, miles away at the recently restored Shaolin Temple, Liu Kang is sparring with a new disciple of the White Lotus named Kai. As they train, Liu Kang offers guidance and advice, helping Kai sharpen his skills. Their match is suddenly interrupted when a group of Shaolin monks approach, informing Liu Kang that his grandfather wishes to speak with him. Just as Liu Kang prepares to leave, something crashes from the sky, giving a powerful impact that shakes the ground. Both Liu Kang and Kai rush to investigate, and to their shock, they find Fusion, the god of wind, wounded and battling a horde of Netherrealm demons. Meanwhile, in Shanghai, Sonya Blade is locked in a fierce battle with Jarek, a member of the Black Dragon. Despite putting up a tough fight, she's ultimately overpowered, and Jarek manages to escape. He hops on his bike, speeding off into the distance. Sonya lines up a clear shot, ready to take him down, until she's interrupted by an incoming call from Jax. Jax informs her that they've been tracking interdimensional fluxes in the southwestern region of China. Also, since she's the closest agent, a chopper is en route to pick her up. As Sonya boards the helicopter, she's met with a familiar face, Johnny Cage. Turns out he's been doing research for his latest movie, and somehow Jax agreed to let him tag along on the condition that he keeps his hands to himself. Back at the Shaolin Temple, Liu Kang and Kai are in the middle of an intense battle, fending off Netherrealm demons while trying to protect Fujin. Just when things start looking grim, a burst of lightning strikes the battlefield, and in an instant, Raiden appears. Raiden warns them that these demons are Shinnok's minions, and Fujin fell from the heavens while defending the Elder Gods. He reveals that Shinnok staged a surprise attack, escaping the Netherrealm through Edenia, and is now moving towards the Elder Gods themselves. Concerned for Kitana, Liu Kang is ready to rush to Edenia, but Raiden stops him. He urges Liu Kang to be patient, gather the rest of Earthrealm's warriors, and prepare for battle. Once Earthrealm's forces are ready, they will take the fight to Edenia. Meanwhile, Raiden and Fujin will return to the heavens and help defend the Elder Gods. Kai wonders how they're supposed to get to Edenia, but before they can figure it out, a helicopter descends from the sky. Sonya and Johnny Cage step out, reuniting with the group. As they catch up, they share what led them all here. Liu Kang fills them in. Their next move is Edenia, but before anyone can respond, Sub-Zero suddenly appears. He backs up Liu Kang's story, revealing that everything started unraveling because of his brother, based on what happened in mythologies. With the truth now out in the open, the group is united, ready to fight, but there's still one big question. How do they actually get to Edenia? That's when Sonya steps up. Her team managed to replicate an interdimensional portal, creating a pathway straight to Edenia. With no time to waste, they step through the portal, only to be met by Quan Chi himself waiting for them on the other side, thus bringing the comic to a close and entering Mortal Kombat 4. In the tournament, Liu Kang faced off against the fallen Elder God Shinnok and once again emerged victorious, putting an end to his attack on Earth. Returning to the Shaolin temples, Liu Kang believed he had lost Kitana forever. However, to his surprise, the Edenian princess stepped through a portal and thanked him for everything he had done. She offered him a place by her side on the throne of Edenia. But despite his feelings for Kitana, Liu Kang knew his duty as Earthrealm's champion came first. With a heavy heart, he declined her offer, choosing responsibility over love, and thus bringing an end to Mortal Kombat 4's narrative.
I've once again defended my title as champion of Mortal Kombat and defended the realm of Earth, but I have failed to save the realm of Edenia. In doing so, I have also lost Kitana forever. Kitana?
Yes, Liu Kang. It is I.
But I thought you were gonna lick—
With Shinnok's destruction, you have not only saved the Earth, but you've also saved my own realm. For that, I can never repay you.
Knowing that you survived is all that I need.
As heir to the throne of my realm, I offer you the chance to rule at my side, as King of Edenia, forever.
I cannot accept your offer. I belong here on Earth as champion of Mortal Kombat.
Then, I wish you good luck, Liu Kang, on all your journeys.
Goodbye, Princess Kitana.
It's fascinating how Mortal Kombat 4 isn't just a sequel to Mortal Kombat 3. It's also a direct continuation of Mortal Kombat mythologies. Since that game takes place 2 years before the first Mortal Kombat, it feels like a revenge plot coming full circle. What's even more interesting is that Ed Boon wanted to take the series in a darker direction, and that's reflected not just in the visuals, but in the overall tone. The earlier Mortal Kombat games had a more colorful, almost comic book-like vibrancy, but here everything feels grittier. Even the characters and their endings lean into more sinister themes. One of the most striking aspects of Mortal Kombat 4's story, both in-game and its tie-in comic, is it's heavily focused on betrayal. The narrative is bookended by acts of deception, reinforcing how treachery shapes the events of the game. This adds an extra layer of depth to the story, highlighting the blurred lines between loyalty and self-interest. Characters are constantly forced to choose between their allegiances and their personal ambitions, leading to shifting alliances and shocking betrayals that keep the plot moving. Revenge has always been a recurring theme in Mortal Kombat, and it's still present here. Characters like Scorpion and Shinnok are both driven by vengeance, but it's betrayal that really stands out in this entry. Tanya's deception of her homeland Edenia to aid Shinnok is a prime example, as is Quan Chi's constant scheming. His ending, where he manipulates the events to his advantage, yet again solidifies the idea that in Mortal Kombat 4, betrayal isn't just a theme, it's a weapon. With that being said, let's dive into the characters and how they shape the story. As always, we start with the newest additions first. While some of these characters were originally introduced in Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, I saved their full analysis for this video, so expect in-depth breakdowns of Quan Chi, Fujin, and even Shinnok here. Mortal Kombat 4 brought back plenty of familiar faces, but it also introduced a solid lineup of new characters. Among them was Fujin, the God of Wind, Jarek, a Black Dragon member stepping in to fill in Kano's role, Kai, a new warrior of the Shaolin Temple, and Rico, a mysterious enforcer of the Brotherhood of Shadow. Then there's Quan Chi, the cunning sorcerer from the Netherrealm and one of the game's main antagonists. Alongside him is Shinnok, the fallen Elder God seeking revenge against the Elder Gods themselves. We also have Tanya, who betrays her homeland of Edenia to aid Shinnok's cause. And finally, perhaps the strangest addition to this game, Meat, an outworld genetic experiment. As for returning fighters, Mortal Kombat 4 and its expanded version Mortal Kombat Gold brought back several classic characters, including Baraka, Cyrax, Kitana, Kung Lao, Mileena, Sector, Goro, Jax, Johnny Cage, Liu Kang, Noob Saibot as a secret character, Raiden, Reptile, Scorpion, Sonya Blade, and Sub-Zero. So much like my other retrospective videos, this one will also cover the new characters first, starting with Fujin. Keep in mind, some of these endings are not canonical, but they help with character development. Now, Fujin, much like Raiden being the god of thunder in Japanese culture, Fujin is derived from the Japanese Fujin, meaning wind god. Initially introduced as an elemental god tasked with guarding Shinnok's amulet, Fujin's journey is one of resilience, loyalty, and growing responsibility. In Mortal Kombat mythologies, Fujin is portrayed as a powerful guardian, but his defeat at the hands of the first Sub-Zero nearly cost him his life. While he doesn't get much time in the spotlight, this early appearance establishes strength while also showing that he's not invincible. This vulnerability makes him a more relatable character, setting up his larger role in the series. By the time Mortal Kombat 4 rolls around, Fujin's story takes a major turn. When Shinnok escapes the Netherrealm and attacks the Elder Gods, Fujin steps up in defense, only to be struck down and sent plummeting from the heavens. His willingness to sacrifice himself for the greater good reinforces his dedication to protecting the realms. Fortunately, Liu Kang, Kai, and Raiden rescue him before it's too late, solidifying his place alongside Earthrealm's defenders. His arc reaches a defining moment in his Mortal Kombat 4 ending, with Shinnok defeated and Earthrealm victorious. Fujin consults the Elder Gods and learns of his new destiny. With Raiden ascending to their ranks, Fujin is chosen as the new protector of Earthrealm, accepting the role with a deep sense of duty. He vows not to fail Raiden, a promise that speaks to his character growth and the trust placed upon him. Fujin's transformation from Amulet Guardian to the protector of an entire realm is a significant step forward. His story embodies themes of perseverance, honor, and leadership, making him one of the most underrated yet essential figures in Mortal Kombat 4.
Our forces of light have defeated Shinnok. Now, I must return to my duties as Earth's god of wind.
You have served your element well, Fujin. But we have a new mission for you.
Raiden? Our battle with Shinnok's forces is over. I must move on to my new position as an Elder God. And you, Fujin, you must take my former position as Protector of Earth. Raiden, it will be my honor to succeed you. Take special care of the mortals of Earth. They are a great people, but have the ability to self-destruct. Be patient and offer your wisdom and guidance. Farewell, Thunder God. I will not fail you. That is why I picked you.
Now, let's talk about the Black Dragon's last known member in Mortal Kombat 4, Jarek. According to his bio, he's one of the last surviving members of the notorious crime syndicate and is actively being hunted by Sonya Blade. However, when Shinnok's invasion begins, Jarek temporarily puts aside his criminal ways and fights alongside Sonya to protect Earthrealm. But here's the thing, when you break it down, Jarek's story is essentially a copy and paste of Sonya and Kano's dynamic. If we go back to the Mortal Kombat 2 comic, Sonya and Kano had a similar alliance when Shao Kahn was preparing to invade Earthrealm. Despite their long-standing rivalry, they joined forces because the planet's survival took priority. Jarek follows the same pattern here, but his true colors shine through once the threat is gone. His ending in Mortal Kombat 4 is one of the darkest in the game. After Shinnok's defeat, Jarek is still clinging to the legacy of the Black Dragon. He finds himself face to face with Sonya. In a shocking moment, he lunges at her, seemingly falling to his death. But as Sonya calls in Jax from atop a cliff, Jarek pulls himself back up and throws her off instead. He then crushes the walkie-talkie, ensuring no backup is coming. It's a cold and calculated move, proving that Jarek is not just another brute. He's cunning, ruthless, and knows how to take advantage of a situation. Much like Kano, Jarek is an elusive survivor, always managing to slip away when it counts. Whether in the comic or his game ending, he outmaneuvers Sonya not once, but twice, solidifying himself as one of the most devious characters in the game. Though the Black Dragon may be on his last legs, Jarek's loyalty to the organization never wavers, making him the true successor to Kano's legacy.
It's over, Jarek. Shinnok is dead. The good guys won. You're coming back with me.
Never, Sonya. I agreed to help defeat Shinnok, not turn myself into the Special Forces. The Black Dragon live on!
The Black Dragon died with Kano. You're the last one, Jarek.
Never!
Come in, Major Briggs. This is Lieutenant Sonya Blade. What?
Sonya, this is Major Briggs. Come in. Sonya, this is Jax. Are you there?
Now let's take a look at the newest Shaolin monk to join the Mortal Kombat roster, Kai. After the destruction of the Shaolin Temple in Mortal Kombat 2, Liu Kang took it upon himself to help rebuild it, and Mortal Kombat 4 shows that his efforts weren't in vain. Kai is a testament to that hard work, representing the next generation of Shaolin warriors. From what we see in the comics, Kai is both honorable and loyal. He shares a friendly sparring match with Liu Kang, showing a deep respect for his mentor, not just as a teacher, but as a guiding force in his life. But he's not just about tradition and discipline. When the time comes to face Shinnok, Kai doesn't hesitate to stand alongside Liu Kang. He may be a wanderer by nature, but his sense of justice and purpose keeps him grounded. Kai's humbleness is a key part of his character arc, and it ultimately leads to a great reward. While he is described as a former White Lotus member, his true journey is one of self-discovery. His ending reveals that he's searching for something deeper, his soul. Recognizing Kai's patience and dedication, Raiden grants him a powerful gift, his own staff, imbued with the power of thunder and a potential key to immortality. It's a symbolic gesture showing that those who remain virtuous and stay true to their path will eventually find their way. Kai's story in Mortal Kombat 4 highlights the importance of patience, humility, and staying true to oneself.
You fought well, Kai. You are now a true Shaolin warrior.
Thanks, Raiden, but I'm not interested in becoming a Shaolin warrior anymore. I've got too many of my own problems to deal with.
What will you do next?
I don't know. Wander the earth, search for my soul, that kind of thing.
Well, perhaps you could use this on your journey.
Your lightning staff?
It holds the power of thunder and lightning. Wield it wisely, for it can show you the way to immortality. You've earned it.
Thank you, Raiden. I will not fail.
Now let's shift our focus to the Brothers of the Shadow with Rico. From what I've gathered, Rico was essentially a stand-in for Noob Saibot in Mortal Kombat 4. While Noob is still accessible via a code, Rico took his place because the Mortal Kombat 4 team felt there were already too many ninjas in the game. According to his bio, Rico originally served as a general in Shinnok's army and was presumed dead. However, when Shinnok escapes another realm, Rico resurfaces, pledging his allegiance by being one of the first to step through the portal during the invasion of Edenia. He plays a significant role in the conflict, but despite his presence, there's one major issue. Rico doesn't say a single word in this entire game. This makes analyzing his character tricky since we have no direct insight into his thoughts or motivations. That said, his ending gives us a lot to speculate on. After winning the tournament, Rico is seen stepping into a portal that leads to Shao Kahn's throne room, and as he takes a seat, Kahn's helmet is placed on his head and his eyes glow. The screen then fades to black. It leaves us with a huge mystery. Was Rico truly loyal to Shao Kahn the whole entire time? Or was he secretly aiming to take his place? This mystery of his ending makes him one of the more intriguing characters in the game, and to this day I think people still debate what it truly meant. Now, let's take a look at the sorcerer himself, Quan Chi, another character who made his mark in Mortal Kombat mythology Sub-Zero. Now, before I dive in, I need to address something. I saw a comment pointing out that I made a mistake in my mythologies video. Apparently, Quan Chi's first appearance was actually in Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm Episode 8. I went back and I checked it out and saw it was actually true. And I also found out that Defenders of the Realm isn't considered canon by Mortal Kombat standards. So considerably, his canonical entry into the series was in Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, but his first entry in the entire franchise was Defenders of the Realm. I just figured I'd clear that up since I want to make sure I give honest facts here. Continuing, from mythologies we quickly learn that Quan Chi isn't just a powerful sorcerer. He's also a master manipulator, playing two rival clans against each other just to get his hands on a map. That level of deception is what fuels Mortal Kombat 4's entire narrative. His true allegiance, it has always been to Shinnok, which mythologies makes clear. And by the time Mortal Kombat 4 rolls around, he's been rewarded for his loyalty, becoming Shinnok's arch sorcerer after the invasion of Edenia. But here's the thing. Quan Chi doesn't actually serve anyone but himself. His ending in Mortal Kombat 4 makes that crystal clear. When he emerges victorious, Shinnok grants him continued existence as a reward. Quan Chi, being the power-hungry schemer he isn't satisfied. He challenges Shinnok, and when the Fallen Elder God tries to blast him into oblivion, the attack just bounces off. That's when we get one of the biggest reveals in the game. Quan Chi was always one step ahead. If you remember in Mythologies when Sub-Zero managed to steal back the amulet and give it to Raiden, it turned out that amulet was a fake. Before handing it over to Shinnok, Quan Chi had already made a duplicate, tricking both Shinnok and Raiden. The real amulet he kept for himself the entire time. This twist cements Quan Chi as one of Mortal Kombat's most cunning villains. His ending wraps up with him revealing his deception and finally taking Shinnok out once and for all. Quan Chi isn't just a sorcerer. He's a strategist, a manipulator, and of all things, a survivor. And if Mortal Kombat 4 proves anything, it's that he plays the long game better than almost anyone.
As payment for your loyal services, Quan Chi, I grant you the gift of your existence. My existence? Understand, sorcerer. I consume all energies, including the life forces of all that live, but I shall spare you.
If it weren't for me, you would still be a tortured soul, rotting in the pits of the Netherrealm.
You dare question me?
I do more than question you, Shinnok. I challenge you.
Then you shall die. What?
Your powers are useless against me.
How can this be?
I am in possession of your once sacred amulet. Years ago, I delivered to you an exact duplicate, while I retained the original. I even fooled Raiden. Now I am ruler supreme. And you, Elder God, are finished!
Now, let's turn our attention to the fallen Elder God himself, Shinnok. Like Quan Chi, Shinnok made his debut in Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero as the final boss. He reprises this same role in Mortal Kombat 4. His backstory establishes him as a once powerful Elder God who was banished to the Netherrealm by the other Elder Gods after a failed uprising. For centuries, he's been scheming, waiting for the perfect opportunity to break free and exact his revenge. His escape in Mortal Kombat 4 is set in motion through deception. He manipulates Queen Sindel into touching an orb which shatters the barriers keeping him imprisoned. Finally free, Shinnok wastes no time, launching his assault on the Elder Gods, determined to reclaim what he believes is rightfully his. But beyond his thirst for vengeance, Shinnok is surprisingly one-dimensional. Unlike other Mortal Kombat villains who have layers to their ambitions, Shinnok is driven purely by revenge. He just wants to make the Elder Gods suffer. His ending, however, is the darkest in the game. In this scenario, Shinnok succeeds in his conquest, eliminating Raiden and declaring himself a ruler of all realms. It's a bleak outcome that fully cements just how ruthless and single-minded he really is. Unlike Quan Chi, who manipulates from the shadows, Shinnok is upfront about his malice. His entire arc revolves around destruction and retribution. While his motivations may not be the most complex, his sheer presence as an Elder God, gone rogue, adds weight to Mortal Kombat 4 stakes. His reign may have been short-lived, but his legacy as a fallen deity who defied the heavens remains a crucial part of his character's journey.
For millions of years, I suffered in the bowels of the Netherrealm. You, Thunder God, are responsible for my suffering. Now the piteous mortals of Earth will pay for my grievance.
You turned against your fellow Elder Gods. You betrayed your title. You deserve much worse.
But it's too late, Raiden. I win! With the Elder Gods out of the way, I will take my rightful place as ruler of all eternity. I can already feel the power surging from within. You're mad! Farewell, Thunder God.
The last new character we're going to analyze is Tanya. Before diving into her, let's cover some behind the scenes history that is fascinating. Kitana was originally planned to be in the game, but before Mortal Kombat Gold dropped, the developers decided to introduce a new character instead. So Kitana's in-progress model that was developed for Mortal Kombat 4 was reworked into Tanya, which explains her somewhat familiar design. Now, onto her role in the story. Based on both her bio and the tie-in comic, we learn that Tanya is the daughter of the New Realms ambassador. She plays a crucial role in Shinnok's invasion of Edenia. But here's where things get interesting. Her true intentions are ambiguous. In her bio, she learns that one of the warriors she allowed into Edenia was none other than the banished elder god Shinnok. That phrasing makes it sound like she was unaware of the full scope of her actions. However, the comic paints a different picture. Quan Chi himself says, "Once Queen Sindel accepted the orb, your presence was guaranteed. For that, we have Tanya to thank." That line suggests she was fully aware of what she was doing from the start. So, was Tanya deceived into aiding Shinnok, or was she always loyal to him? I'm gonna leave that up for debate and for y'all to discuss in the comments. Now, what isn't up for debate is her betrayal in her ending. Tanya is just as cunning as Quan Chi and Shinnok. She earns Liu Kang's trust and lures him into a trap and watches as he is instantly eliminated by Shinnok. Regardless of whether she was initially a pawn or a willing accomplice, by the time of her ending, she fully embraces deception and betrayal. This fits Mortal Kombat's themes of betrayal, like I said from earlier, and Tanya embodies that concept perfectly. She betrays Edenia, and then she betrays Earthrealm's champion. If there's one lesson her character arc teaches, is that you never truly know who you can trust.
Follow me, Liu Kang. Raiden has asked that I lead you to him.
What about the others?
He has something special planned for them.
Tanya, what's going on?
I don't know what Kitana saw in you. Can't you see, Liu Kang? This is a trap.
Welcome, Shaolin warrior. Your Thunder God is beaten. Earth's warriors destroyed. You are the last remnants of the forces of light. Do you wish to beg for mercy from your new master, the Lord Shinnok?
Never, sorcerer!
Fool!
As a quick note, I'll be covering Meat in another Mortal Kombat video. Just know that in this game, he made his debut. Now let's cover the returning characters. Starting in Mortal Kombat 4, we're looking at the Shokin Prince, Goro. Canonically, we haven't seen Goro since the first Mortal Kombat. Back then, he was nothing more than Shang Tsung's enforcer. He was also the reigning champion of Mortal Kombat and the Shokin warrior who eliminated the Great Kung Lao. What's surprising is that based on the Mortal Kombat 2 comic, we were led to believe that Goro had perished. However, Mortal Kombat's comic reveals that Goro's supposed death actually triggered a war between the Centaurs and the Shokin. Fast forward to the events of Mortal Kombat 4 and we see a completely different side of Goro. With Shao Kahn's rule over, Kitana is working to establish peace, and Goro resurfaces, not as a warlord, but as her ally. He supports Kitana's efforts, even going as far as defending her when she's about to be attacked by a centaur. He even decides to protect Edenia when it comes under siege. This shift is huge for Goro as a character. Once a ruthless warrior fighting under the command of sorcerers, he's now choosing his own path, one that prioritizes the well-being of his people. While Goro doesn't have his own ending in the game, we get insight into his growth through Kung Lao's ending. In it, Goro embraces peace, reconciling not only with the centaurs, but also with Kung Lao, the descendant of the man he once deleted. Seeing Goro's transition from a brutal enforcer to a peacemaker is a compelling arc. It's a true evolution of his character, one that embodies the idea of a fresh start and a new beginning.
Goro,
We are here to offer the Shokan a treaty for truce. The Centaurs have already signed and agreed to all terms. We now await your acceptance.
War has been waged in this realm for too long. We must bring it to an end. I will set aside my differences with the Centaurs as long as they abide by the treaty. I shall sign your agreement.
Goro, this is a great victory for all of us. Kung Lao, we are at a moment of peace. How could you attack now?
I once thought that an allegiance with an enemy was a lost cause, Princess Kitana.
Was that your attempt at an assassination, Earthman?
No, that was a ceremonial strike of revenge for my ancestor that you killed in Mortal Kombat so many years ago.
And do you wish to continue this battle?
No. I wish only to settle the differences between us.
Your ancestor was a great man, and a brave and noble warrior. You should be proud of his accomplishments. If he won, perhaps it would be my own son, seeking to settle differences with him.
Now let's talk about the man himself, Jax. He was originally introduced in Mortal Kombat 2, and since then his character has evolved significantly. In Mortal Kombat 2, Jax was portrayed as a skilled fighter with a strong sense of duty. His primary motivation was to find and rescue Sonya, showcasing his loyalty and determination. At this stage, Jax was a purely human character relying on his natural strength and combat abilities. Mortal Kombat 3 marked a significant change in Jax's character's design and backstory. In preparation for the invasion by Shao Kahn, Jax underwent a procedure to fit his arms with bionic implants, enhancing his already formidable strength. This transformation not only altered his physical appearance, but also symbolized his commitment to protecting Earthrealm at any cost, even if it meant modifying his own body. By Mortal Kombat 4, Jax has become a seasoned warrior and a key figure in Earthrealm's defense. His role expanded beyond that of a special forces officer to become one of Raiden's chosen warriors. This evolution is evident in his involvement in the fight against Shinnok and the Netherrealm forces, demonstrating his growth as a character willing to face supernatural threats. Jax's ending in Mortal Kombat 4 is particularly significant in understanding his character development. In this ending, Jax confronts Jarek, a member of the Black Dragon clan. The scene portrays Jax as a more hardened and uncompromising character, willing to dispense his own form of justice. When Jarek pleads for mercy, invoking the law that Jax is sworn to uphold, Jax responds by dropping him off a cliff and giving us one of Mortal Kombat's worst one-liners in history. This ending reveals several aspects of Jax's evolved character. Firstly, it shows his disillusionment with traditional justice systems when dealing with otherworldly threats. Secondly, it highlights the moral ambiguity that has crept into his character, as he's willing to take extreme measures to eliminate threats. Lastly, it demonstrates Jax's increased confidence and authority as he makes unilateral decisions in high-stakes situations.
It's over, Jarek. Shinnok is dead. The good guys won. You're coming back with me.
Never, Sonya. I agreed to help defeat Shinnok, not turn myself into the Special Forces. The Black Dragon, live on!
The Black Dragon died with Kano. You're the last one, Jarek.
Never!
Come in, Major Briggs. This is Lieutenant Sonya Blade. What?
Sonya, this is Major Briggs. Come in. Sonya, this is Jax. Are you there? Going somewhere, Jarek? Jax! I thought you were going to... Thought I was what? Dead? Like my partner you just tossed off the cliff? I'm sorry, Jax. Please, don't drop me. Wait, I promise. Too late, Jarek. You can't drop me. You have to uphold the law. You have to arrest me. Wait, this is brutality. You can't do it. Wrong, Jarek. This is not a brutality. This is a fatality.
Now to the funniest character in the franchise, Johnny Cage. In the original Mortal Kombat, Johnny Cage was introduced as a cocky and self-absorbed Hollywood action star who entered the tournament primarily for publicity and prove his martial arts skills were genuine. His character was largely one-dimensional, serving as comic relief with his arrogance and showboating nature. As the series progressed, Johnny Cage's character began to show more depth. In Mortal Kombat 2 and 3, while still maintaining his trademark humor and bravado, Cage started to take the threats to Earthrealm more seriously. His involvement in the battles against Outworld forces began to shape him into a more responsible fighter, though he still retained much of his egotistical personality. By Mortal Kombat 4, Johnny Cage had undergone a significant transformation. Having died during the events of Mortal Kombat 3 and been resurrected, Cage returned with a newfound sense of purpose. His experience in the afterlife and his willingness to rejoin the fight against Shinnok demonstrated a level of selflessness and heroism that was not present in his earlier incarnations. This version of Johnny Cage showed a greater commitment to protecting Earthrealm and supporting his allies, marking a stark contrast from his initial self-centered motivations. Johnny Cage's ending in Mortal Kombat 4 is particularly telling of his character development. While it maintains elements of his trademark humor, it also showcases his growth as a hero. In his ending, Cage defeats Shinnok and boasts about his accomplishment, blending his characteristic arrogance with a genuine sense of heroism. This ending serves as a bridge between Johnny Cage of old, the egotistical movie star, and the more mature heroic figure he would become in later installments. It's funny in his ending because the people in the audience start to reject this more macho version of him. Rather, they just wanted to see the true human side of Johnny Cage, showing that while he has grown, he still has growing to do.
Wow! I don't know what to say! I guess I could start by thanking all my fans out there. Well, that's enough of the mushy stuff. I mean, let's get real here, huh? When am I gonna get some real competition? Come on, don't get silent now! Where are all the cheers? Hey, wait a minute! I'm your #1 guy! I'm gonna remember this! Ow! Okay, now I'm mad! Hey, come on! Quit it! Ow! I saw that, Arnold! Hey, cut it
out! Now on to Earthrealm's champion, Liu Kang. Originally, he was introduced as a Shaolin monk with a strong sense of duty and pacifist leanings. His initial portrayal emphasized his role as Earthrealm's champion, driven by a desire to protect his home from Outworld threats. As the series progressed, Liu Kang's character developed more depth. In Mortal Kombat 2 and 3, while maintaining his core values, he began to embrace his role as a warrior more fully. His victories in these tournaments solidified his status as Earthrealm's greatest defender. This evolution reflected a shift from his initial reluctance to engage in violence to a more pragmatic acceptance of his responsibility as a protector. By Mortal Kombat 4, Liu Kang has become a seasoned warrior, having won multiple tournaments and faced numerous threats to Earthrealm. His character now embodied a balance between his Shaolin principles and his duty as a defender. Although his heart has affection towards Kitana, even in the comic book when Shinnok invades Edenia, Liu Kang's first thoughts is Kitana. He wants to help her and is not afraid to do so. This iteration of Liu Kang was more confident and assertive, willing to confront even godlike entities like Shinnok to safeguard both Earthrealm and Edenia, building on that narrative of how he is as a protector. Liu Kang's ending in Mortal Kombat 4 is particularly significant in understanding his character development. In this ending, after defeating Shinnok, Liu Kang is approached by Princess Kitana, who offers him the chance to rule at her side in Edenia. Despite the temptation, Liu Kang declines, citing his duty is to protect Earthrealm. This decision highlights Liu Kang's commitment to his role as Earthrealm's champion and his ability to resist personal desires for the greater good.
The war is over. I've once again defended my title as champion of Mortal Kombat and defended the realm of Earth, but I have failed to save the realm of Edenia. In doing so, I have also lost Kitana forever. Kitana?
Yes, Liu Kang, it is I.
But I thought you were gonna lick—
With Shinnok's destruction, you have not only saved the Earth, but you've also saved my own realm. For that, I can never repay you.
Knowing that you survived is all that I need.
As heir to the throne of my realm, I offer you the chance to rule at my side, as King of Edenia, forever.
I cannot accept your offer. I belong here on Earth as champion of Mortal Kombat.
Then, I wish you good luck, Liu Kang, on all your journeys.
Goodbye, Princess Kitana.
Now on to the Thunder God himself, Raiden. In the original game, Raiden was introduced as a powerful deity who saw mortals as nothing more than beneath him. As more entries came out, Raiden's character became more relatable. In Mortal Kombat 2 and 3, he continued his role as a mentor and protector, but began to show more direct involvement in Earthrealm's defense. Raiden's commitment to protecting Earthrealm became increasingly central to his character, sometimes leading him to make difficult decisions for the greater good. By Mortal Kombat 4, Raiden's character had evolved to reflect the growing threats to Earthrealm. He became more proactive in his approach to defending the realm, willing to confront Shinnok. This iteration of Raiden demonstrated a deeper understanding of the cosmic balance and the consequences of his actions. His experiences in previous games had made him more pragmatic, yet he still maintained his core values of protecting Earthrealm and its inhabitants. Raiden's ending in Mortal Kombat 4 is particularly significant in understanding his character development. In this ending, Raiden is shown ascending to the status of Elder God. This ascension represents the culmination of Raiden's journey from a protector of Earthrealm to a cosmic overseer. However, it also highlights the sacrifices Raiden must make for the greater good, as becoming an Elder God would mean relinquishing his direct involvement in Earthrealm's affairs. His ending directly connects to Fujin's ending. This means it brings the story full circle.
Raiden, for many ages you have protected the Earthrealm from the forces of evil. You have earned your place among us. With your ascension into the pantheon of Elder Gods, you must choose your successor as the new protector of Earth.
With the aid of Earth's mortals, I have once again managed to defeat Shinnok and his minions. I choose Fujin. He will guide the mortals of Earth as they move into the next millennia.
Now let's look at Mortal Kombat's first secret boss, Reptile. In his early appearances, Reptile served as a servant of Shao Kahn and Shang Tsung. His loyalty stemmed not from ambition, but from desperation. He believed that by serving these powerful figures, he could secure the revival of his extinct race. This sense of duty and longing for his lost people defined Reptile's motivations throughout the series. By Mortal Kombat 2, he became a playable character with unique moves and began to stand out as more than just a green-clad ninja. However, his servitude remained central to his identity, making him an archetype of the loyal yet unhappy servant. By Mortal Kombat 4, Reptile's story takes a darker turn. He faces judgment from Queen Sindel based on his alliance with Shao Kahn. And in this game, his physical appearance becomes more reptilian, symbolizing his descent into despair and isolation. In Mortal Kombat 4, he allies with Shinnok, another master who manipulates him with false promises of restoring his race. This alliance highlights Reptile's tragic flaw, blinded by loyalty and willingness to serve anyone who offers him the faintest hope of achieving his dream. However, this loyalty is repeatedly exploited by those in power, leaving Reptile perpetually betrayed and unfulfilled. Reptile's ending in Mortal Kombat 4 encapsulates the tragedy of his character. After defeating Shinnok, Reptile pleads with Shinnok to honor his promise of restoring his people. Instead, Shinnok mocks him for daring to make demands and eliminates him on the spot. This ending underscores the futility of Reptile's servitude and blind faith in corrupt masters. It serves as a grim commentary on how his desperation for belonging and purpose leads him into cycles of exploitation and betrayal.
Quan Chi, I have served our Lord Shinnok well in the destruction of Earth's warriors.
Yes, we are most appreciative of your efforts.
Now I wish to return in time to my home world before it was destroyed at the hands of Shao Kahn. As the new ruler supreme of all reality, Shinnok alone has the power to grant me this wish.
You dare make such an impetuous request from your lord and master?
It is a simple request for one of such great power.
It is also not worth his attention.
I demand it. If it were not for warriors such as myself, his attack against Raiden's forces would have failed.
Perhaps you can convey your feelings to Shinnok himself.
What?
Infidel! You are in no position to demand anything. I could kill you with a mere thought.
But we had a deal.
A deal? I am not a god of my word, Reptile. All deals are off!
Now, let's talk about a fan favorite, Scorpion. Mortal Kombat 4 feels like the perfect continuation of Mythologies, especially when it comes to his story. To recap, in Mythologies, we learned that both Scorpion and Sub-Zero were hired by Quan Chi to steal the sacred map of elements. Scorpion failed his mission and was deleted by the first Sub-Zero. To make matters worse, his entire clan, along with his wife and child, were wiped out at the hands of Quan Chi. But in Mortal Kombat 4, Scorpion's arc finally comes full circle. At first, Scorpion believes the younger Sub-Zero is his enemy, continuing the cycle of violence. But when he finally learns the truth that it wasn't Quan Chi who orchestrated the massacre of his clan, everything changes. This revelation is a defining moment for Scorpion, shifting his path from blind vengeance to one of purpose. His ending in Mortal Kombat 4 is one of the most satisfying in the game. After defeating Sub-Zero, Scorpion finally confronts Quan Chi. Instead of continuing his misguided hatred towards Sub-Zero, he turns his fury on the true culprit. This moment is huge, not just for Scorpion, but for the overall narrative, because it shows just how much Scorpion has changed. Looking at Scorpion's journey across the series, it's clear how much he has evolved. What started as a simple tale of vengeance has become something much deeper, one of betrayal, manipulation, and ultimately, clarity. No longer being played, Scorpion is finally in control of his own fate.
By defeating you, Sub-Zero, I have avenged the death of my family and clan. Now my soul can finally rest.
Your soul will never rest, Scorpion. The Lin Kuei may have been responsible for your murder, but your family's true killer still remains free.
If you are not the murderer, then who is?
I am the one you seek. To defeat my nemesis Sub-Zero, I needed the power of a Spectre. You've done my bidding well, Scorpion. But now I must return you to the Netherrealm.
Never!
Now, let's take a look at the former Special Forces officer, Sonya Blade. From the beginning, she was a tough-as-nails soldier focused on one thing: taking down Kano and the Black Dragon. She and her team were captured while hunting Kano and were forced to participate in Mortal Kombat to survive. In Mortal Kombat 2, she was kidnapped once again, this time alongside Kano, and the two had briefly teamed up in this entry to stop Shao Kahn's invasion. By the time Mortal Kombat 3 rolled around, she had finally taken Kano down, left the Special Forces, and joined the Outworld Investigation Agency alongside Jax. But by Mortal Kombat 4, Sonya's story feels somewhat recycled. Instead of Kano, her new target is Jarek, another member of the Black Dragon. While she initially pursues him, she momentarily shifts her focus when Jax alerts her to an anomaly in China. This subtle change highlights how Sonya's role has evolved. She's no longer after criminals. Her responsibility has expanded to protecting Earthrealm on a larger scale. Sonya's ending in Mortal Kombat 4 is an important moment in understanding her character. After Shinnok's defeat, she corners Jarek. This scene reinforces some key aspects of her personality. First, it shows her commitment to justice. She refuses to let Jarek go, despite their temporary alliance. Secondly, it highlights her no-nonsense attitude. Sonya doesn't fall for manipulation or empty words. Overall, Sonya's character has learned from her past mistakes with Kano, and it is shown here with Jarek. While her rivalry with Kano may have been replaced with Jarek, Mortal Kombat 4 still reinforces what makes Sonya stand out: her determination, her discipline, and her dedication to the fight for justice.
It's over, Jarek. Shinnok is dead. The good guys won. You're coming back with me.
Never, Sonya. I agreed to help defeat Shinnok, not turn myself into the Special Forces. The Black Dragon, live on!
The Black Dragon died with Kano. You're the last one, Jarek.
Never!
Come in, Major Briggs. This is Lieutenant Sonya Blade, over.
Sonya, glad to hear you're alive.
You actually sound happy to hear from me, Jax. Things get boring?
Not since you followed Liu Kang into the Netherrealm.
Well, it's over now. I'm returning to base. 10-4, Jax.
Now, the last character from Mortal Kombat 4 I'm going to cover before we get into Gold is Sub-Zero. Now, when looking at Sub-Zero, it's clear that ever since Mortal Kombat 2, he has been trying to atone for his brother's sins. He initially sought revenge against Scorpion, but ultimately chose to end the cycle of violence, making him one of the most mature characters in the entire series. In Mortal Kombat 4, his journey of redemption continues. Determined to reconcile with his brother's past actions, he travels to the temple where the elemental gods once resided. Upon finding it empty and the amulet missing, he immediately understands the gravity of the situation. Without hesitation, he joins Earthrealm's warriors, backing up Liu Kang's story and filling them in on the unfolding events. For a brief moment, even he believes his brother's actions may have led to this invasion, showing how deeply the weight of the Lin Kuei's past still lingers over him. To truly understand how far he has come, we need to look at his ending. After defeating Scorpion, Sub-Zero was ambushed by Quan Chi. However, the scene takes a major turn when Quan Chi reveals himself as the one responsible for the deletion of Scorpion's family and clan. This revelation changes everything as Scorpion, realizing the truth, turns his vengeance towards Quan Chi, dragging them both into the Netherrealm. This moment right here solidifies Sub-Zero's evolution from living in his brother's shadow to standing as his own man, driven by a sense of honor and justice. His transformation from a Lin Kuei assassin to a protector of Earthrealm showcases the series' deeper themes of redemption and moral complexity. Sub-Zero isn't just fighting for himself anymore. He's fighting to right the wrongs of the past and forge a better future.
The battle is finished. Your quest for vengeance is over, Scorpion.
You cannot kill a dead man. You have defeated my physical form, but my soul is eternal. You will pay for the massacre of my clan and family.
Well done, Sub-Zero. Like your brother before you, you have served my purposes well.
I serve no one. Not the Lin Kuei, and not you.
Scorpion agreed to fight for us in exchange for freedom from the Netherrealm. A deal I had no intention of fulfilling. By killing him, you saved us the trouble. Both you and Scorpion were pawns for Shinnok.
Scorpion!
Our battle is finished. You are now freed from my curse. Live well, Lin Kuei warrior.
Now, let's get into the characters that came back in Mortal Kombat Gold. Starting with Baraka. In Mortal Kombat 2, Baraka is introduced as a warrior from Outworld, known for his bloodlust and ferocity. At this stage, Baraka is presented as a loyal servant of Shao Kahn, leading attacks on Earthrealm and carrying out his Emperor's orders without question. His allegiance stems from his belief in Shao Kahn's strength and the promise of power through conquest. However, Baraka's motivations remain simple. He thrives on violence and destruction, making him an ideal enforcer, but a character with limited depth. By the time of Mortal Kombat Gold, Baraka's character has evolved into someone more opportunistic and calculating. Following Shao Kahn's defeat in earlier games, Baraka aligns himself with Shinnok and Quan Chi during their campaign to conquer the realms. This shift reflects Baraka's tendency to serve powerful masters while secretly harboring ambitions of his own. His willingness to betray those he serves becomes more apparent as he sees alliances as nothing more than temporary means to achieve greater power. In his ending, Baraka confronts Quan Chi after Shinnok's defeat, demanding revenge for being manipulated. As he prepares to strike down a sorcerer, he learns that it was a decoy in the seat. Baraka turns to strike him again, and Quan Chi uses magic to freeze Baraka and eliminates him instantly. This ending highlights the recurring theme of Baraka's downfall. Despite his strength and ferocity, he is constantly outmaneuvered by those more cunning and powerful than himself. It underscores his role as a pawn in larger schemes, doomed to fail whenever he attempts to assert control over his destiny.
Enter. I said enter, Baraka. Have no fear. Our betrayal is complete. I have dealt with those once loyal to Shinnok. This victory is ours.
You bask in your newfound power on the throne of Queen Sindel, while I am forced to hide in the shadows.
Who is it you are hiding from? The Elder Gods are dead. Raiden is dead. And thanks to you, Shinnok is dead.
Everyone is dead.
Yes. Everyone in this Forsaken realm is dead.
How do we rule a realm with no one in it?
This war was not about holding court to mortals. It was about obtaining power. I now possess that power.
And I am forced to live out my existence in a dead realm with a madman. Now, sorcerer, you will pay with your life.
I haven't a life to give, you fool.
What?
The next character to cover is the Machine himself, Cyrax. Introduced in Mortal Kombat 3, Cyrax was once a Lin Kuei warrior who was forcibly transformed into a cybernetic assassin programmed to eliminate Sub-Zero. He ultimately failed his mission and was left without orders, wandering aimlessly until he became stranded in Jade's desert. This period of isolation served as a metaphor for his internal struggle. But by Mortal Kombat Gold, Cyrax's story takes a turn. He's rescued by the Lin Kuei, but the experience of being abandoned has changed him. Memories of his past life begin to surface, sparking a desire to break free from his programming. With the help of Sonya and Jax in his ending, Cyrax undergoes a procedure to restore his humility. His ending confirms his successful transformation as he regains both his human form and his memories, marking a true rebirth of the character. Grateful for their help, he chooses to join forces with the Special Forces, dedicating himself to protecting Earthrealm. Cyrax's arc from Mortal Kombat 3 to Gold is a compelling story of identity and redemption. Once a soulless machine, he evolves into a warrior who reclaims his past and chooses his own destiny. His journey highlights one of the series' most profound themes: free will triumphing over control.
All right, Cyrax. All systems are go. Are you sure you want to go through with this? If this fails, we won't be able to recover your main processor.
We'll lose you for good.
After experiencing the flashbacks in my fight against Shinnok, I realize that my existence is unnecessary unless I can fully recover my human psyche. We must continue with the process.
All right then. I'll begin the scanning process. Sonya, you hit the regeneration switch on my cue.
All set, Jax. Ready on your go.
Sonya, hit the switch on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, power down now.
Powering down.
I am human. I feel life once again, and I remember everything. Thank you so much. I am forever in your debt. I will not return to my Lin Kuei roots as an assassin. I instead choose to fight at your side for Earth.
Well, that's good news.
Let's get you out of these harnesses. You've been trapped long enough.
Now let's look at Princess Kitana. If you remember from earlier, she was originally planned for Mortal Kombat 4, but the developers decided otherwise, leading to her return in Mortal Kombat Gold instead. When Kitana was first introduced in Mortal Kombat 2, she was nothing more than an assassin working under Shao Kahn. However, discovering her true heritage and witnessing her mother's resurrection, her story took a dramatic turn. By the time of Mortal Kombat 4 and its tie-in comic, Edenia has been restored, and Kitana alongside her mother Sindel is one of the key figures striving to maintain peace in the realm. In Mortal Kombat Gold, Kitana's story revolves around her escape from prison and her fight to free Edenia from the forces of Shinnok and Quan Chi. She is depicted as strong-willed, determined, and fully embracing her role as a leader. This shift from a conflicted assassin to a confident ruler demonstrates her growth as a character, showing her willingness to fight for her people and defend her rightful place as a princess. Her ending in Mortal Kombat Gold highlights one of her most personal conflicts, her ongoing rivalry with Mileena, the evil clone created by Shang Tsung. In the scene, Mileena attempts to delete Kitana, but Kitana outsmarts her, triggering a trap that sends Mileena to her demise. This moment emphasizes Kitana's intelligence and strategic thinking, proving she's more than just a skilled fighter. She's a cunning leader who won't be easily overthrown. The confrontation also reinforces Kitana's claim to the throne, dismissing Mileena as nothing more than an artificial imposter.
Kitana, I want your status. I want to be Princess of Edenia. It is my right!
You have no right! You are not my sister! You were born of Shang Tsung's sorcery for Shao Kahn. What right do you have to the throne of Edenia?
No. No!
You are evil and have no place in this world!
You are right, Kitana. But if I have no right to this realm, then neither will you! You will die, sister. And I will take this realm for myself! Never!
Now let's focus on the other Shaolin monk, Kung Lao. When Kung Lao was introduced in Mortal Kombat 2, he was depicted as a disciplined warrior and a close friend of Liu Kang. However, beneath the surface, there was an unspoken rivalry. Kung Lao struggled with standing in Liu Kang's shadow, feeling a deep need to prove himself and carve out his own legacy. This inner conflict became a defining trait, shaping his journey throughout the series. By the time of Mortal Kombat Gold, Kung Lao had gone through major character growth. At one point, he faked his own demise in pursuit of a peaceful life, seeking to honor his ancestors' beliefs. However, upon learning that Goro, the warrior responsible for his ancestors' death, was still alive, Kung Lao was pulled back into battle. This decision highlights the ongoing struggle within him, the tension between his desire for peace and his deep-seated duty to uphold his family's honor. His ending in Mortal Kombat Gold delivers a powerful moment of closure. Instead of acting on pure vengeance, Kung Lao confronts Goro with the ceremonial strike, meaning to honor the great Kung Lao. After delivering this symbolic blow, rather than continuing the fight, the two warriors shake hands, bringing their conflict to an end. This moment is a testament to Kung Lao's growth. He's no longer fueled by revenge, but by wisdom and understanding. This resolution marks a major turning point for Kung Lao. It demonstrates his ability to find balance between being a warrior and a man of peace, proving that true strength lies not just in combat, but in the wisdom to move forward.
Goro, we are here to offer the Shokan a treaty for truce. The Centaurs have already signed and agreed to all terms. We now await your acceptance.
War has been waged in this realm for too long. We must bring it to an end. I will set aside my differences with the Centaurs, as long as they abide by the treaty. I shall sign your agreement.
Goro, this is a great victory for all of us. Kung Lao, we are at a moment of peace. How could you attack now?
I once thought that an allegiance with an enemy was a lost cause, Princess Kitana.
Was that your attempt at an assassination, Earthman?
No, that was a ceremonial strike of revenge for my ancestor that you killed in Mortal Kombat so many years ago.
And do you wish to continue this battle?
No. I wish only to settle the differences between us.
Your ancestor was a great man, and a brave and noble warrior. You should be proud of his accomplishments. If he won, perhaps it would be my own son, seeking to settle differences with him.
Now let's talk about the evil clone herself, Mileena. Mileena's story is one of envy, rage, and a desperate need for validation. When she was introduced in Mortal Kombat 2, she served as Shao Kahn's loyal enforcer alongside Kitana. However, her jealousy toward Kitana's status, beauty, and favor with Shao Kahn consumed her. Rather than reporting Kitana's betrayal, she acted impulsively, confronting her sister in combat. This decision led to her downfall. Kitana deleted Mileena, setting the foundation for her defining traits, a mix of obsessive hatred for Kitana and an unfulfilled desire to be seen as her equal. By Mortal Kombat Gold, Mileena's role has evolved. Resurrected in another realm by Shinnok, she became one of his agents in his war against Earthrealm and Edenia. While still driven by her vendetta against Kitana, she displayed a more cunning and strategic mindset. Instead of simply trying to eliminate Kitana, she allowed her sister to escape imprisonment, wanting to face her in battle to prove her superiority. This shift in mindset reflects Mileena's desperate need not just to defeat Kitana, but to validate her existence as something more than just a twisted clone. Mileena's gold ending is a tragic encapsulation of her character. After finally besting Kitana in combat, she throws her size, sending Kitana to her demise. With Kitana gone, Mileena proclaims herself as the ruler of Edenia. However, this so-called victory is hollow. She doesn't earn the throne through respect or loyalty, but through bloodshed and deception. The moment underscores the core tragedy of Mileena's existence. No matter how much power she seizes, she can never truly escape the insecurities of being an artificial creation, forever chasing an identity that isn't truly her own.
Kitana, I want your status. I want to be Princess of Edenia. It is my right.
You have no right. You are not my sister. You were born of Shang Tsung sorcery for Shao Kahn. What right do you have to the throne of Edenia?
No. No!
You are evil and have no place in this world.
You are right, Kitana. But if I have no right to this realm, then neither will you! You will die, sister. And I will take this realm for myself!
Now, let's get into the last character I'm going to talk about, Sector. His story is one of loyalty twisted into ambition and a relentless pursuit of power at any cost. Introduced in Mortal Kombat 3 alongside Cyrax, Sector was one of the first Lin Kuei warriors to willingly undergo cybernetic transformation, believing it to be the future of the clan. Unlike Cyrax, who was forced into the Cyber Initiative, Sector volunteered willingly, seeing the cybernetic enhancements as a key to ultimate strength. At first, he was simply a loyal assassin carrying out orders without question, but as time went on, his programming began to corrupt, leading him down a path of ruthless ambition. By Mortal Kombat Gold, Sector no longer viewed the Lin Kuei's leadership as strong enough, believing that the clan needed to be rebuilt under his vision, one of total mechanical efficiency. This mindset turned him from a mere cybernetic warrior into a true villain, seeking not just power, but complete domination. Sector's Mortal Kombat Gold ending cements his transformation. His ending is the opposite of what happens with Cyrax. In Cyrax's ending, we see that he becomes human once again and is able to live life, although this ending takes a darker turn. Instead of Cyrax actually going on to live life after his transformation, Sector arrives, and Sector decides to actually have a field day with everyone in that room. It ultimately leads to one of the darkest moments in this game, with Jax, Sonya, and Cyrax being deleted. At its core, Sector's character arc is about control. Control over his own fate, control over the Lin Kuei, and ultimately control over what he sees as the future of warriors. He embodies the idea that power without humanity leads to tyranny, making him one of the most dangerous figures in the entire Mortal Kombat lore.
All right, Cyrax. All systems are go. Are you sure you want to go through with this? If this fails, we won't be able to recover your main processor.
We'll lose you for good.
After experiencing the flashbacks in my fight against Shinnok, I realize that my existence is unnecessary unless I can fully recover my human psyche. We must continue with the process.
Alright then, I'll begin the scanning process. Sonya, you hit the regeneration switch on my cue.
All set, Jax. Ready on your go.
Sonya, hit the switch on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, power down.
What?
Okay, so Mortal Kombat 4's gameplay is different from other Mortal Kombat games. For starters, it was the first time Mortal Kombat was in 3D, and trust me, this game loves to show off how 3D it is through its controls and camera angles. One of the biggest changes was the introduction of sidestepping. Yep, you now had a button that lets your character move left or right to dodge attacks. Another way they flexed the power of the new engine was by adding stage items that could be picked up and thrown during fights. As for controls, they're mostly similar to Mortal Kombat 3. The run button makes a return, but the biggest addition? Weapons. That's right, Mortal Kombat now had weapons. Each character got their own. Raiden had a warhammer, Scorpion had a sword, and so on. All your weapons were accessible through a special code designated to each character. What's interesting is that if you put the code in again, you could throw your weapon at your opponent. Now, the downside, if your opponent got hit, the weapon would drop and anyone could pick it up. So yeah, using weapons was kind of a risk or a reward situation. For players who wanted to actually get good, Mortal Kombat 4 introduced a practice mode. What really made it useful was the option to set your opponent either idle or active. Pressing start brought up the full move list and fatalities, so you didn't have to keep guessing or looking them up. It was a huge step from just grinding through arcade mode, losing repeatedly, and burning through continues. Speaking of arcade mode, this game felt way more rewarding. For the first time, Mortal Kombat endings had full FMV cutscenes. No more just reading text like in Mortal Kombat 1 through Trilogy. Now, you actually saw how the story played out. The game also brought back the Choose Your Destiny mechanic, letting you pick from different difficulty towers: Novice, Beginner, Warrior, Master, and Master 2. If you didn't like the tower, you can press start and it will shuffle to a different one. Other new modes included Team Mode, where you can build a squad of up to 5 fighters to battle against another team, either a friend or the CPU. It was basically just fight after fight until one team was wiped out. Then there was Endurance Mode. This wasn't just a single endurance match anymore. It was now a whole selectable mode with 3 different versions. Normal Endurance, where you fight through any ladder without health replenishments, versus Endurance, where 2 players battle in endless matches until one finally loses. Ultimate Endurance, where you face an endless wave of progressively harder opponents. Mortal Kombat 4 definitely changed things up with its gameplay. Some additions worked, some probably didn't, but it was still a bold step into the 3D era. The game also incorporated a tournament mode. Beyond its diverse gameplay mode, Mortal Kombat Gold harbored a trove of secrets that added depth to the excitement for players. To unlock Meat as a playable character, players needed to conquer group mode with all 15 characters. Upon completion, selecting any fighter would transform them into Meat, retaining the chosen character's moveset. Now, if you wanted to play as Goro, he could be unlocked by beating the game with Shinnok. At the character selection screen, players had to perform a specific sequence. Doing so would allow them to play as Goro. Noob Saibot had returned in this game, but as a secret character as well. In order to play as him, players were required to finish the game with Rico. Then they needed to input the 012-012 combat code in Versus mode, exit, and perform a similar sequence to Goro's unlock, but with different directional inputs. True to Mortal Kombat tradition, the game featured a secret options menu. The way you got to the secret menu's option varied depending on what platform you were playing the game on. Then there was also alternate costumes, which added another layer of customization to characters. By rotating the character's icon a specific number of times before selection, players could access different outfits and weapons for their chosen fighter. Just overall, you couldn't go wrong with Mortal Kombat 4 in terms of gameplay. There might have been something you enjoyed, there might have been something that fell on his face, but to tell you the truth, they were very innovative for this game. Mortal Kombat first dropped for the Sony PlayStation and Nintendo 64 on June 23, 1998 for North American markets and September 15, 1998 for European audiences. We're going to start with the PlayStation port. The PlayStation port of Mortal Kombat 4 was a faithful adaptation of the arcade version, but with some notable differences. While it retained the core gameplay and 3D graphics that made the arcade version stand out, the PS1 hardware limitations resulted in some compromises. The PS1 version featured a FMV intro, character biographies, and endings which were not present in the N64 version. This added a layer of cinematic quality to the game's presentation. However, the graphics were not as sharp as the arcade or N64 versions, with a lower polygon count and less detailed textures. One of the most significant issues with the PS1 port was its loading times. Compared to the N64 version, which maintained minimal loading due to its cartridge format, the PS1 version suffered from frequent and lengthy loading times between matches and when accessing different parts of the game. This could significantly impact the overall pacing and enjoyment. Despite these drawbacks, the PS1 version did offer some advantages. The next port we're going to talk about is the N64 port. This is widely regarded as one of the best home console adaptations of the game. One of the standout aspects of the N64 port is its impressive technical performance. The game runs at a constantly high frame rate, ensuring fluid combat without any noticeable slowdowns. This was a significant achievement given the hardware limitations at the time. While the graphics were slightly downgraded compared to the arcade version featuring lower polygon counts and less detailed textures, the visuals were still considered excellent for the N64. Dynamic lighting effects and vibrant stage designs helped bring this version of the game to life, making it one of the most visually striking fighting games on the console. Unlike CD-based versions, the N64 port used in-game graphics for character endings instead of pre-rendered FMV cutscenes. While this was a limitation due to cartridge storage constraints, it allowed for a seamless transition and eliminated loading times, which was a major advantage over other home versions. Players appreciated the lack of interruptions during gameplay as it kept the pacing fast and engaging. The N64 version also included exclusive content that set it apart from other ports. While the N64 port was great, there were some criticisms. The semi-3D movement system where players could sidestep using a dedicated button felt underutilized and clunky at times. Additionally, while the game retained its classic Mortal Kombat fighting mechanics, some critics noted that it didn't innovate enough beyond its predecessors, relying heavily on established gameplay formulas. Moving on, the Windows port of Mortal Kombat 4 was released on June 30th, 1998 for North American markets and on September 15th, 1998 for European markets. The PC port of Mortal Kombat 4 was a mixed bag. offering some improvements over other home console versions while still falling short of the arcade experience. Much like the PlayStation version, the PC port featured FMV videos, character bios, and endings, which gave it that cinematic quality that people were accustomed to from the PlayStation port. However, the graphics of the PC version were generally considered inferior to the arcade version, even with the 3D accelerator card. The visuals were not particularly impressive, though they did offer color lighting effects. The game used lower polygon count models for characters, similar to the PlayStation and Nintendo 64 versions, resulting in less detailed graphics compared to the arcade. One advantage of the PC port was its potential for better performance, depending on the player's hardware. Some users reported smoother gameplay compared to the console versions. However, the game's compatibility with modern systems can be challenging when requiring additional configuration or workarounds to run properly on current Windows operating systems. Now, the last port of Mortal Kombat 4 I'm going to cover is the Game Boy Color port. Now, this port was released on December 10th, 1998 for North American markets and in 1999 for European markets. The Game Boy Color port of Mortal Kombat 4 was developed by Digital Eclipse. This version translated the 3D fighting game into a 2D format to accommodate the handheld's limited capabilities. The Game Boy Color port featured a reduced roster of non-selectable characters: Raiden, Quan Chi, Fujin, Liu Kang, Sub-Zero, Rico, Tanya, Scorpion, and the hidden character, Reptile. Shinnok remained as the final boss. This game's engine was based on the Game Boy port of Mortal Kombat 3, reusing elements like the character select screen and choose your destiny interface. One of the most notable aspects of this version was its unique approach to fatalities. Instead of using in-game graphics, the Game Boy Color port used short full-motion video clips to display these finishing moves. After performing a fatality, the screen was switched to black and white, showing a brief low-quality video of the move, followed by a red screen displaying fatality. The gameplay in the Game Boy Color version was significantly simplified compared to other versions. The combo system and weapons were removed, and each character was limited to only 2 special moves. The background music was replaced with repetitive gameplay appropriate tunes, and blood was absent from the game except during fatality videos. Critics received the Game Boy Color port poorly. Reviewers cited unresponsive controls, limited gameplay, and how distractingly different it was from other versions of Mortal Kombat 4. The game was criticized for its ease and lack of depth, which GameSpot's Jeff Gerstmann giving it a 3.5 out of 10 and IGN's Piers Schneider rating it a poor 4.0 out of 10. Now that we covered Mortal Kombat 4, it's time that we covered Mortal Kombat Gold. Now, Mortal Kombat Gold released on September 9th, 1999 for North American markets and October 29th, 1999 for the UK, exclusively for the Sega Dreamcast. This was an updated version of Mortal Kombat 4. It was also developed by Eurocom. Now, the game aimed to deliver an enhanced experience of its arcade counterpart while taking advantage of the Dreamcast capabilities. The game ran at a higher resolution than the arcade version and performed smoothly on the Dreamcast hardware. It maintained the core gameplay of Mortal Kombat 4, including the 3D environments and the weapon system, while adding new characters and stages. The roster expanded to include returning favorites like Kitana, Mileena, Cyrax, Kung Lao, and Baraka, who were not present in the original Mortal Kombat 4. However, the game was not without its flaws. Initial releases suffered from bugs, including issues with the VMU support that prevented players from saving their progress. Midway later re-released the game with a hot new label addressing many of these bugs and adding proper save functionality. Some critics also noted that the graphics, while an improvement over home versions, didn't fully showcase the Dreamcast capabilities, and it looked more akin to the N64 port of Mortal Kombat 4. Despite these issues, Mortal Kombat Gold was generally well received by fans of the series. It offered a comprehensive Mortal Kombat experience on a powerful new console, combining familiar gameplay with enhanced visuals and additional content. The game's inclusion as a Dreamcast launch title helped establish the console's fighting game library and provided players with a solid entry in this franchise. Mortal Kombat 4 received generally positive reviews across its various platforms. On game rankings, the N64 version averaged 76% from 20 viewers, the PlayStation version 75.75% from 16 viewers, and the PC version 72.14% from 14 viewers. Critics praised the gameplay, with many finding it entertaining despite its similarity to previous Mortal Kombat titles. The new 3D graphics, improved combo system, and retention of the classic character movements were highlighted as positive aspects. The N64 port was particularly well received for its faithfulness to the arcade version, with GameSpot giving it a great 8.9 and IGN giving it a great 8.8. The PlayStation and PC ports were commended for their responsive controls and exclusive FMV scenes. However, some reviewers found the gameplay could become stale, especially in the PC version without multiplayer options. Mortal Kombat Gold, an updated version of Mortal Kombat 4 released for the Dreamcast, received a much more mixed reception. It averaged only 58% on game rankings. Critics were particularly harsh on the graphics, with Game Revolution rating it a D and commenting that the graphics were inexcusably horrible. The weapon system was widely criticized as dull and uninteresting, with IGN noting that readying weapons was a slow process that left players vulnerable. Many reviewers felt that Mortal Kombat Gold was outdated compared to other fighting games of this time, particularly when it compared to Soul Calibur on the same system. Jeff Gersman of GameSpot, who gave the game a 5 out of 10, described playing it as feeling like a retro gaming experience that hadn't aged gracefully. The game was also noted for having game-breaking bugs and glitches. Despite the generally negative reception, there were some positive reviews. Brazilian magazine Super Game Power gave the game a 4.5 out of 5, praising its graphics as superior to previous Mortal Kombat games on a console or arcade. Now, you gotta sometimes wonder, how did the average gamer react to Mortal Kombat 4? Based on the average gamer, it seems they had mixed to negative feelings about Mortal Kombat 4. While some appreciated its attempt to transition the series into 3D and its inclusion of familiar Mortal Kombat elements, many felt the game failed to innovate meaningfully or recapture the magic of earlier entries in the franchise. One reviewer highlights a sense of fatigue within the series, stating that Mortal Kombat 4 felt unnecessary after Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 and Trilogy, which were seen as high points. The graphics, while adequate, were criticized for being rushed and uninspired, with blocky character models and noticeable bugs detracting from the overall presentation. This sentiment reflects a broader disappointment in the game's visual execution, especially given the hype surrounding the new Zeus engine at the time. Gameplay was another major point of contention. One reviewer describes it as watered down, with cheap tactics and button mashing dominating matches. This lack of depth frustrated players who expected a more refined experience. The absence of hidden characters and iconic finishing moves like babalities and friendships further diminished the game's appeal for longtime fans. The inclusion of weapons, while novel, was not enough to offset these shortcomings. The story also received harsh criticism for being incoherent and poorly executed. While the FMV endings were a step forward in presentation, the inconsistent outcomes left players confused rather than satisfied. One reviewer even jokes that the chaotic narrative might signal the end of the series, underscoring how underwhelming the story was for many players. Despite these criticisms, there were some bright spots. The sound design was praised as above average, and level designs were noted as visually appealing and varied. However, these positives were not enough to outweigh the game's flaws. Overall, based on reviews, the average gamer saw Mortal Kombat 4 as a mediocre entry in the series, fun for a short time, but ultimately forgettable compared to its predecessors. Many likely viewed it as a missed opportunity for Mortal Kombat's transition into 3D gaming. While that's how the average gamer might have felt about Mortal Kombat 4, how did the average gamer feel about Mortal Kombat Gold? Based on reviews, it seems that Mortal Kombat Gold was met with significant disappointment, particularly due to its lack of meaningful innovation and technical issues. While the game attempted to expand upon Mortal Kombat 4 with additional characters and stages, many players felt it failed to justify its existence as a gold or enhanced edition. Instead, it was perceived as a slightly altered re-release of Mortal Kombat 4, offering little new content or improvements. The gameplay was a major point of contention. The absence of meaningful upgrades to the combat system combined with clunky controls made the experience feel dated and frustrating. Players struggled with input precision for moves and fatalities, which detracted from the overall fun factor. This issue was compounded by the fact that the game's mechanics and weapon system were already seen as underwhelming in Mortal Kombat 4. Replayability was another issue highlighted in the review. Once players unlocked the endings, there was little incentive to return to the game. This lack of depth made Mortal Kombat Gold feel stale quickly, especially when compared to superior fighting games on the Dreamcast like Marvel vs. Capcom. One reviewer even suggests the game might only be worth playing if other options were unavailable, underscoring its perceived mediocrity. On a more positive note, the visuals were praised as one of the game's few redeeming qualities. The detailed character models, atmospheric backgrounds, and lack of noticeable loading times were highlighted as standout features. However, even these strengths couldn't save the game from its other shortcomings. The sound design also suffered from bugs in early versions of the game, with audio frequently cutting out mid-battle, a flaw that further diminished players' immersion. Overall, Mortal Kombat Gold was seen as a missed opportunity to revitalize the franchise on a new generation of hardware. While die-hard fans may appreciate its visual fidelity and expanded roster, most players found it to be an uninspired and buggy rehash of Mortal Kombat 4. For many, it symbolized a low point in the series' history and failed to compete with more polished fighting games available on the Dreamcast at the time. Overall, the game had some hits and misses. In my honest opinion, Mortal Kombat 4 wasn't that bad. However, upon my research, I see by the time it was released, fatigue has set in from all sides. Think about it. After a string of missteps that left fans with a sour taste, this was almost doomed before it even launched. I think it's safe to say that it's probably one of the most forgotten numbered entries. It's not the worst, trust me, we're gonna get there soon. But there's something fun and charming about this game. The story, on the other hand, was starting to spiral out of control. If I had to compare Mortal Kombat at this time to anything, I think the closest comparison would be Marvel of today. Think about the build up to Avengers Endgame, how invested people were. The movie was a massive success, but after reaching that peak, then what? When Disney Plus launched, introduced a ton of Marvel shows that tied into the next movies. If you didn't watch them, you'd feel lost in the films, and that's where the disconnect set in. People felt fatigued because nothing was going to reach the same heights. Now, take that concept right there and apply it to Mortal Kombat in the late 90s. If you didn't finish or even really get far in Mortal Kombat mythology Sub-Zero, then Shinnok and Quan Chi probably didn't mean much to you. If you skipped the short-lived TV show, then Quan Chi's presence didn't carry much weight either. And to top it all off, we had Mortal Kombat Annihilation, which we all know was a disaster. By the time Mortal Kombat 4 rolled around, it wasn't as controversial or over the top as previous entries. It was never going to thrive. People were just disenchanted with Mortal Kombat. Personally, I remember watching my brother play this game and playing it myself. The FMVs were cheesy, but fun. Some dark, others surprisingly wholesome. Keep in mind, this was made when Midway was still figuring out 3D, but they gave it their best shot. It's not perfect, but it's nostalgic. Between MK4 and MK Gold, I prefer MK4 for the nostalgia, but I appreciate MK Gold for its expanded roster. Talking with my brother, we both wish we had a Dreamcast back in the day, just to experience Gold when it was fresh. At the end of the day, Gold is just MK4 with more characters, and that's just how I'm going to see it. Now, about the bosses, they had potential, but needed something more. I like the idea of Shinnok, but I don't think he should have been playable. In previous Mortal Kombat games, bosses like Shao Kahn, Kintaro, and Goro, Montaro weren't playable, but Except for that one port, Goro could be played, but for the majority, these characters were unplayable. There was something protective about having them as the boss. And to be honest, I think Shinnok's movesets was just a carbon copy of Shang Tsung minus the transformations. You can literally go into his moves, enter the specific code, and then you'll be fighting as if you're playing as Sub-Zero, Scorpion, Raiden. It's like Shang Tsung, but this time he just doesn't transform anymore. The hardest part about this game, in my opinion, was fighting Goro. It felt like playing Mortal Kombat all over again. Getting past a Shokin warrior was the challenge, but other characters felt oddly handled. I know the behind the scenes drama with Daniel Pesina that led to Johnny Cage's removal before the events of MK3, but his return in this game felt cheap. He just asked Raiden to bring him back and Raiden said sure. Even Goro's return didn't sit right with me. He was hiding during Mortal Kombat 2 and 3, but conveniently showed up after Shao Kahn was gone. It felt like Midway was scrambling to win fans back, and I see for this game, it might not have worked. That said, I did enjoy Goro's arc in this game, and despite its imperfections, did Mortal Kombat 4 do anything right? Absolutely. You got blood and fatalities, two elements that make Mortal Kombat's formula. Did it introduce anything new? Well, it did, with 3D, but beyond that, not much. This game is fun to revisit, but not one to stay with. I think it's average at best. It doesn't deserve much of the hate it gets, but I think most fans can agree it is the black sheep of Mortal Kombat. If you made it to the end of this video, I appreciate you taking the time to tune in. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like. It really helps with the algorithm and brings more people to the channel. Next week, we're back with the Rockstar Takeover with Grand Theft Auto Vice City. And in 2 weeks, we return to the Mortal Kombat Takeover, covering the franchise's lowest point with Mortal Kombat Special Forces. If that sounds like your kind of speed, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you're ready when the videos drop. This is the Retro Phantom, signing out.